Accidents, a family's worst nightmare. They can change a life in an instant or end it. But most accidents don't have to happen. They can be prevented.
This tragedy could have been prevented. It started innocently enough as a weekend activity for a scout troop. A fun activity, well planned, well prepared. They left home on Friday, drove to their destination, camped out that night and the next. Tonight, Sunday, they started back home just as it was getting dark. The police have come up with several possible scenarios for what happened. The scout leader, the driver, might have been exhausted from the weekend. Maybe his reflexes were slow. Maybe he was talking on a cellular phone. Maybe he was checking a road map. Or maybe he was distracted by some of the boys in the van. The bottom line was the vehicle missed a turn and left the road. To make things worse, 2 of the boys were not wearing their seat belts. This accident was the direct result of a breakdown in qualified supervision and discipline. 2 key elements in what scouting calls the sandwich principle. Like the bread that holds together a sandwich, supervision and discipline are the foundation and cover that make scouting safety a reality. Qualified supervision and discipline could have prevented what started out as a safe activity, but ended up in the risk zone. In this case, there was a fatigued, distracted driver and passengers without seatbelts. How unnecessary this accident was, how easily it could have been avoided. Consider another situation. Idyllic, isn't it? Like a painting. Who thinks such a beautiful setting could be the stage for a drowning? But it was. And not so long ago, it was another camping weekend for another scout unit. The sky was clear, the wind calm, the sun bright and hot, the water inviting. 8 boys, 12 and 13-year-olds, were in canoes out in the middle of the lake. The 2 adult leaders were preparing a meal on shore. The boys on the lake were hot and sweaty. They decided to take a dip to cool off. So several jumped in. Soon, all 8 were in the water. A couple of them had left their PFDs in the canoes. No one really saw what happened. But one of the boys didn't make it back to the canoe. Tragically, he drowned. The questions that come to mind are obvious. Why was there no adult supervision? Why did those boys ignore the familiar scout rules for swimming, boating, PFDs, the buddy system, safe area, ability groups? The answer is simple. Lack of qualified supervision and discipline. The first and last points of safe swim defense and safety afloat in the Guide to Safe Scouting. It's a fact that scout-age youth who are having fun in or on the water are not likely to be focused on their own safety. Even if they are concerned, they lack the judgment and experience needed to protect themselves and their friends from danger. That's where qualified supervision and discipline come in, to make sure that everyone knows and follows the rules of safety. It's the sandwich principle of scouting, a foundation of discipline with all the safety elements held in place by qualified supervision. When did this water activity enter the risk zone? The moment it began. Because the adult leaders were distracted by other concerns, and there was never any supervision for the activity on the lake. The leaders should have anticipated what 12 and 13-year-olds would do when the sun was hot and the water was cool. They would dive in with no thought of safety. Unfortunately, dangers that involve water take many forms. Some sneak up on you. Water and temperature can be a deadly combination. What I'm talking about is dehydration and heat exhaustion. If unrecognized and untreated, it can become heat stroke, hyperthermia, a life-threatening condition. Hiking is a very popular scout activity,
often done in the heat of summer. Sometimes that heat and the demands of the hike can pose a danger to youngsters. If I were the scout leader and saw the condition that boy was in, I'd call for an immediate break and tell everyone to move into the shade, sit down, and drink some water.
Hold up, guys. We're going to do a pack-off break.
Then I'd personally bring the boy into the shade with me, sit him down, and get some water into him. We wouldn't start back on the hike until I was sure the boy had fully recovered and there was absolutely no danger of dehydration or heat exhaustion to him or the others.
Danger from temperature is not limited to heat. Cold can be deadly too, what we all know as hypothermia, the potentially fatal loss of core body heat. It's another risk zone that can be easily avoided if the sandwich principle is applied. Whatever the danger, an attentive, conscientious leader sees a potential risk and takes control. Qualified supervision and discipline, it works. Remember, safety begins with leadership, and you are the leader.